Hello and welcome to the Daf Yomi edition today. Thank you for your time to join me. Let's dive straight in. So we're doing Bekhorot Mesechet Tractate Bekhorot Daf 33 Omidei. Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel responds to that claim. This statement applies only to an unblemished firstborn offering, which is sacrificed by the altar. But concerning a blemished firstborn, it is written, "And you shall eat it within your gates. The impure and the impure may eat it alike." Deuteronomy 12:22. See Deuteronomy 15:22. Beis Hillel derived an fortiori inference. And if a ritually impure priest, who may not eat the meat of offerings of lesser sanctity, so what's the footnote? What does that mean? A richly impure priest may not eat of offerings of lesser sanctity. One who is richly impure may not partake of offerings. That's the Rambam Sefer Avodah Hilchot B'Sulei HaMikdashim. And the other footnote, Kadashim Kolim, offerings of lesser sanctity. The offerings sacrificed in the temple are divided into two main categories: offerings of the most sacred order and offerings of lesser sanctity. The offerings of the most sacred order include those offered on Yom Kippur, communal sin offerings, burnt offerings, and sin offerings. The offerings of lesser sanctity include peace offerings, animal tithe, and the paschal offering. One of the primary differences between the two types of offering is that offerings of the most sacred order are slaughtered only in the north of the temple courtyard, while offerings of lesser sanctity may be slaughtered anywhere in the courtyard. The most fundamental difference between the two types of offerings is with regard to when the animal becomes sacred and when the sanctity is nullified through misuse. Offerings of the most sacred order are sacred, and the sanctity can be nullified through misuse from the moment they are consecrated. By contrast, only certain parts of the offering of less sanctity are considered sacred, and the sanctity takes effect from the time that they are slaughtered. Similarly, the offerings of the most sacred order may be consumed only on the day they are sacrificed and the following night, while most offerings of less sanctity may be consumed on the following day as well. Nevertheless, may eat the meat of a blemished firstborn offering. Then, with regard to a non-priest who may eat the meat of offerings of less sanctity, e.g. peace offerings and the animal tithe offerings, is it not logical that he may eat the meat of a blemished firstborn offering? There are more ways of difficulty. This fortiori inference can be refuted. What is notable about the case of richly impure priest is notable in that its general prohibition was permitted in certain circumstances, specifically with regard to communal service. So what does that mean? Communal offerings that are brought at designated times, see Mahari Kurchas, override which impurity imparted by a corpse. Accordingly, if the designated time to sacrifice the offering arrived, and the majority of the congregation for whom the offering is being brought is richly impure from a corpse, or if the majority of the priests are richly impure, the offering is nevertheless sacrificed. The meat of any such offering may not be eaten, with the exception of the paschal offering. Instead, the sacrificial parts are burned on the altar, and the rest of the animal is burned in the manner of sacrificial animals that contract with impurity. That's the Rambam Sefer Avodah Hilchot Hamikdash 4:11-12. If there is no richly pure priest, the sacrificial service may be performed by a richly impure priest. By contrast, it is never permitted for a priest to perform the sacrificial service. By contrast, it is never permitted for a non-priest to perform the sacrificial service. Accordingly, one can not derive halacha concerning a non-priest via a fortiori inference from an impure priest. And Beis Hillel would respond, is that to say that the fortiori inference was stated with regard to the sacrificial service, which is subject to that refutation? Not so. Rather, we state with regard to eating of the sacrificial meat, and the eating of the non-priest is superior to that of a richly impure priest. Accordingly, the refutation of the fortiori inference is inapplicable. The Brisa stated that according to Rabbi Akiva, Beis Hillel deems it permitted for non-priests, even Gentiles, to partake of a blemished firstborn offerings. The Gemara asks, what is the reason for Rabbi Akiva? The verse states, just like the gazelle and like the deer, Deuteronomy 15:22, just as the gazelle and the deer are permitted to be eaten by a Gentile, so two disqualified firstborn offerings are permitted to be eaten by a Gentile. The Gemara asks, on the other one, either Tana, who disagrees with Rabbi Akiva's version of the opinion of Beis Hillel, who does not deem it permitted for a Gentile to partake of a blemished firstborn offering, and what is his reason? The Gemara answers that the terms gazelle and hart are written 3 times in the context of disqualified consecrated animals in Deuteronomy 12:15, 12:22, and 15:22. One is required for the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Shaya. So what's the footnote? The translation follows the Gemara's text according to Rashi and Tosfot. See Rabbeinu Gershon Mohagola, whose version of the text reads, one for Rabbi Yitzchak in the name of Rabbi Shaya. Both Rashi and Rabbeinu Gershom or Hagola write that they are unaware of any such statement. Rabbeinu Tam explained the halachic ruling found in Makot 22a based on a statement of the Gemara here, that there is a source in the verse for the ruling of Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Shaya. The Gemara there cites the opinion of Rabbi Shaya or Hoshaya, that one who breeds a redeemed, disqualified, consecrated ox with a female of his own species is considered as aggressive prohibition against breeding animals of diverse kinds. Because they are each of different status, and he's therefore liable to receive 2 sets of lashes. Similarly, Rabbi Yitzchak maintains that even if one plows using a single redeemed blemish ox, he is considered to have violated Torah prohibition against plowing with 2 types of animals, as verse compares it to 2 animals, a gazelle and a hart. And one is needed for the statement of Rabbi Elazar HaKappa. Rabbi Elazar HaKappa derives the juxtaposition between disqualified consecrated animals and undomesticated animals, i.e. the gazelle and the deer, that just as consecrated animals require slaughter for their meat to be permitted, in accordance with the verse, "You shall slaughter of your herd and of your flock," Deuteronomy 12:21, same applies to undomesticated animals, Chulin 28a, and the other, the Idach, and the other, according to the version that the names Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Shai represents 2 different sources, there is a 4th halacha. This would be problematic, as the Gemara explicitly states that there are only 3 halachot. For this reason, some commentators maintain that this phrase should be deleted to Shittim Mechubeses. Others suggest that this alludes to the opinion in Chulin that disagreed with the ruling of Rabbi Elazar HaKappa, Mayim Kadoshim. Verse teaches that just as a gazelle and a deer are exempt from the first of their offspring being counted firstborn, as the verse states, all the firstling males that are born of your herd and of your flock, Deuteronomy 15:19, referring specifically to domesticated animals, but not to undomesticated animals, such as a gazelle and a deer. So too, disqualified consecrated animals are exempt from the first of their offspring being counted as firstborn. It's also footnote there, Pesude HaMukdashin Petur Min HaBechorah. The halachot relating to the firstborn offering do not apply to blemished consecrated offerings prior to their redemption, whether they are consecrated for temple maintenance or to be sacrificed upon the altar. So the Rambam Sefer Kabbalah here, Bekhorot 1:5, see also 5:8, teaches that just as a gazelle and a deer are exempt, I must at that point. So to disqualified consecrated animals are exempt from the first of the offspring being counted the firstborn. See 14. The sages taught in a Braita, one may not give a blemished firstborn offering to a menstruating woman to eat. This is the statement of Beis Shammai. And Beis Hillel say one may give it to a menstruating woman to eat. The Gemara asks, what is the reason of Beis Shammai? It is written with regard to the firstborn offering, and their flesh shall be yours, as the wave breast and the right thigh, Numbers 18:18. Just as there with regard to the wave breast and the right thigh, menstruating women may not eat them, as these consecrated meats may not be eaten by a richly impure individual. So too here with regard to the firstborn offering, menstruating women may not eat meat, as it too is consecrated. Beis Hillel responds, this statement, either this verse, is referring only to the meat of an unblemished firstborn offering. Only such meat is compared to the wave breast and the right thigh. With regard to a blemished firstborn offering, the verse explicitly states that the impure and impure may eat it. See Deuteronomy 15:22. Beis Shammai would claim this statement that the richly impure may eat the meat of a blemished firstborn offering applies only where the impurity does not issue upon him from his own body, but is contacted from an external source, e.g. from a corpse or the carcass of a creeping animal. But where the impurity issues upon him from his own body, such as in the case of a zav or menstruating woman, that individual may not eat the meat of a blemished firstborn offering. Beis Shammai continued, this is a valid distinction, as we find that the mercy one distinguishes between a case where the impurity issues upon an individual from his own body and between a case where the impurity does not issue upon him from his own body. As we learn in the Mishnah Pesachim 95b, when the paschal offering is sacrificed in state of ritual impurity, a paschal offering brought in a state of ritual impurity may be eaten by an imperfect abonisha only if he is impure due to ritual impurity imparted by a corpse or due to contact with another source of impurity. Lechem Mishnah. One whose own body is the source of his ritual impurity, e.g. a woman who just gave birth, a leper, a zav, or zava, may not eat the paschal offering. If one does eat from it, he or she is not liable to receive kare, and that's in the Rambam Sefer Kabbalah Hilchot Kohen Pesach 7:8. Due to the fact the majority of the Jewish people are impure, then zavim and lepers and zavat and menstruating women and women after childbirth may not eat from it. The sacrificing of the Paschal offering overrides only ritual impurity imparted by a corpse. It does not override other forms of ritual impurity. And Beis Hillel would respond, it is only there in the case of the Paschal offering that a difference of that kind implies that the merciful one revealed that only an individual whose impurity did not issue from his own body is permitted to eat the Paschal offering, as if a state is impure by reason of a dead body, Numbers 9:10. But here, with regard to the firstborn offering, the term impure is written unspecified. The impure and the pure may eat it alive. Therefore, in this case, there is no difference between the two types of impurity. The sages taught in a Braita. One may not skin an animal from its feet, magilin. Skins are made from whole hides removed from various animals. They are used for many purposes, but especially for holding various objects and foodstuffs. Magilin, skin of an animal from its feet. Magilin. This verb is from the word regel, foot. It refers to the act of removing the animal's flesh by way of one of its legs in order to preserve the entire hide in one piece without tearing it. Some is referring to the act of beginning the flailing of the hide from the feet of the animal on a festival. It's prohibited to skin an animal from its feet on a festival. This is referring to the removal of its flesh through one of its legs in order to leave the hide completely intact. It is prohibited to do so on a festival, as this requires much effort and is not needed but for the festival itself. And the Rambam Sefer Zemanim Hilchot Yom Tov 3:6, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 499:1. Such an act is considered degrading to the animal, and even if the animal had been redeemed and slaughtered. The Gemara asks, granted, one may not skin an animal from its feet on a festival, as one is thereby performing an effort whose outcome is not needed for use on the festival. With regard to a firstborn offering, who is a tan who taught that skinning it from its feet is prohibited? Rav Chisda says, this is the opinion of Beis Shammai, who say that one may not feed the meat of a firstborn offering to a menstruating woman. According to Beis Shammai, a blemished firstborn retains its sanctity as though it were unblemished and must be treated in the manner of sacrificial meat. Skinning an animal from its feet is considered an act inappropriate for such meat and is therefore prohibited. The Gemara analyzes the next clause of the Braita. Nor is skinning by way of the feet permitted in the case of disqualified consecrated animals. The Gemara asks, who is the Tanu who taught this? Rav Chisda says it's Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon. As written in the Braita, one had performed two sin offerings. In the case where one designated an animal as a sin offering and it became lost, and then designated a second animal as a sin offering, and then the first animal was found, if he uses one of them as his offering, the other must die. If one of the animals is blemished and the unblemished, the blemished animal is used and the blemished one is redeemed. If the blemished animal was slaughtered before the blood of the unblemished one was sprinkled on the altar, one is prohibited to derive benefit from the blemished animal. Apparently, the Rambam rules according to Rabbi Lazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, which is puzzling, which, as this is the minority opinion, the Kesef Mishnah and Lechem Mishnah suggest that there is a copious error in the Rambam, and it should be, following the opinion of the rabbis, that the blemished animal is permitted if slaughtered prior to sprinkling the blood of the unblemished animal. Rambam Sefer Avod Hilchot B'Tzudei HaMukdoshin 4:3 Ma'ari Korches there. That he consecrated to achieve atonement for sin. So in the event that one of them was lost or died, the other would affect the atonement. One of them was unblemished and the other one became blemished after having been consecrated. The halacha is that the unblemished offering should be sacrificed, whereas the blemished one should be redeemed. The Braita continues, if the blemished animal was redeemed and slaughtered before the blood of the unblemished one was sprinkled on the altar to affect atonement, no time permitted to be eaten. But if the blemished one was slaughtered after the blood of the unblemished animal was already sprinkled upon the altar, the blemished animal is prohibited both in consumption and benefit, since its owner's atonement is affected by the sprinkling of the blood of the unblemished offering on the altar. At this stage, the blemished animal must be put to death in accordance with the halacha that a sin offering whose owner is achieved atonement with another sin offering must die. Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, says even if the blemished animal was slaughtered and its meat is being cooked in the pot, and only then was the blood of the unblemished animal sprinkled on the altar, the meat of the blemished animal is still prohibited. And Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, maintains that disqualified blemishes retains a measure of their sanctity even after being slaughtered, since the blemished sin offering was not yet eaten when the blood of the unblemished one was sprinkled. It is considered a sin offering whose owner has achieved atonement, and therefore is prohibited for one to derive benefit from it. The opinion of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, accords the ruling of the Braita with regard to skinning a disqualified consecrated animal from its feet. The Gemara raises a difficulty, but let Rav Chisda establish the entire Braita according to the opinion of Beis Shammai. Ramal explains, perhaps Beis Shammai say that the sanctity of a blemished offering is retained only in the case of firstborn offering as sanctity from the womb, but with regard to a disqualified consecrated animal, the sanctity is not from the womb. Perhaps they do not maintain that the sanctity remains even after it's been slaughtered. It is therefore necessary to attribute the latter clause of the Braita to Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon. That's the end of Omid A. Thank you for listening, and please know all the best. Bye.